Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of RTM's Track Talk. Today I am joined by a member of our editorial board and director of Midlands Connect, Maria Machancoses. Our discussion ranges from welcoming HS2, easy and affordable travel, and what Maria visualises as the future for our railways. So Maria, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So for any of our listeners who may not be aware, can you tell us about Midlands Connect and what you do that's specific to the rail industry?
Well, for many people, they'll relate to the fact that the Midlands obviously is at the heart of the national network. We are at the heart of the country. We're the makers. We are pretty strong regional economy, and we find the importance. We really understand basically the importance of road, rail infrastructure, and in fact, we also understand the huge significance of helping our manufacturers or businesses to export and to reach out to ports and to airports. So that's what Midlands Connect really is about. Is we come together to research and to develop and recommend what are the key transport interventions, what are the key transport projects that will make the Midlands economy flourish and succeed, that will make businesses more productive and reach out to customers and to trade partners in a more resilient and in fact more reliable and better way. So we plan, we look ahead, we don't look at the next year or two. We actually focus on medium to longer term because, as you know, some of these transport initiatives do take a long time to develop, let alone to implement. And the Midlands for many years has been, believe you me, well underinvested. We got huge pressures on the network. We need to do our work well. So we are here to provide that sound evidence to government why we need interventions, what projects we need, not in the next 5 years, as I said, but in the next 10, 15 years.
So back in October, East Midlands leaders called for the full delivery of HS2's eastern leg to bridge the east-west divide. And since then, it has been confirmed that HS2 Phase 2B will be divided into sort of split up numerous different bills. What sort of concerns does this trigger for you, and what would this mean for the Midlands?
Well, there are a number of concerns. We in the Midlands actually, as you know, welcome hugely the decision from the Prime Minister in February to give the go-ahead to HS2. And with that, the Midlands, over the last 5 years, we have made it very clear, HS2 cannot be looked at as two things. We cannot look at it as a phase 1, phase 2, phase 2B. You need to look at it as a whole network. That's what really makes a real difference to the UK. And secondly, we need to stop looking at it as a railway. And the East Midlands has been planning, preparing, and we in Midlands Connect have also been planning and preparing for the arrival of HS2, so we can maximize, all the good opportunities that it brings, like we've seen already in Birmingham, for instance. So these debates around what's going to happen to phase 2B, whether it's going to be chopped, from in 3, 4, 5 bills, is very important for us, and particularly for the East Midlands, because the last thing we want is to provide more uncertainty, and the towns and cities and businesses and indeed investors who have already put a lot of time and resource into the planning for the East Midlands area, and particularly the eastern leg around Towton. If all of a sudden there's going to be a downgrade of the HS2, or the sequencing or the construction of the eastern leg is going to take such a long time, that could almost jeopardize the ability for investors to plan and to go ahead with all that housing and all that sort of job creation that the Midlands, particularly these Midlands, were ready to deliver as per next year, because of because on the back of knowing that HS2 was coming, that is not good at all. So, and particularly for the East Midlands, who have, as you know, one of the most less invested region in the country, top bottom of the league in terms of the amount of money spent in transport by government. So these sequencing, this idea of phasing the delivery of HS2 cannot be done into the detriment of the communities and the towns and cities of the East Midlands. We are concerned that this focus on accessing big cities and big places will leave the East Midlands behind, to be frank.
Mm-hmm. So a new collaboration was announced back in September between the Department of Transport and the East Midlands transport leaders. Has there been any progress in terms of improvements across the region since this announcement?
Yes, so as I said earlier in the conversation, when people talk about progress, unfortunately, progress doesn't mean built just yet. One of the big challenges, that we all experiencing, and it's very important for your listeners to understand, is that when government is keen to support regions, and we heard the Prime Minister many times talking about the build, or the build back better, build back greener. These things don't come round in a click of a finger. They do take time. So yes, you're absolutely right. There's been some really good engagement between the East Midlands and government. Government actually has supported the creation of a development corporation around the HS Toton Station. There's also been an appetite for government to work with the East Midlands in regards to future franchises and future timetabling for railways. But obviously, in terms of what next, we're still awaiting announcement from budget that's coming this week. No doubt what the East Midlands and indeed Midlands Connect are hoping to get out of that collaborative arrangement with government is funding support, resource for us to develop those projects further, to accelerate them so they become what people call shovel ready much quicker. We need to really accelerate our planning capabilities because these projects are being talked about for many years, but they're not really ready to be in place like next year. So we really got to work really closely with government and the rail industry to get that pipeline really sharp and ready so we can bring the benefits and people can start seeing that difference much quicker.
So speaking of differences and seeing improvements quicker, can you give us any sort of update on the potential electrification of the Midlands Main Line?
Well, we have actually, that's one thing that the Midlands has been very, very clear about. We have talked about Midlands Engine Rail, we talked about HS2, but all of that on the premise of that the Midland Mainline electrification was also a key priority for the Midlands. And this is now more important than ever, isn't it?
Yeah.
Latest figures from the government say that only 30% of the network actually it's able to carry electric trains at the moment. In a climate change emergency, this is just not good enough. So we were really pleased when Network Rail published the traction decarbonisation, network strategy back in September, and for the first time in 4 or 5 years actually set in paper there the ambition to electrify the whole Midland Main Line, which was hugely welcomed by everybody in Midlands Connect and these Midlands in particular too. So we that's been set out now is a program, but we obviously know that at the moment government is developing what they call the integrated rail plan by the end of the year. We hope to see the outcomes of that hugely important report for the Midlands and the North. And as part of that, not only they'll be setting out the program for HS2, but phase 2B, but also equally important for how will you integrate the HS2 to programs like Midlands Engine Rail and Northern Powerhouse Rail, but also the wider investment program that matters. And that should definitely be the Midland Mainline electrification. So we're hoping that this integrated rail plan will set a real plan of action, and that we will see the agenda of Network Rail in terms of the implementation of electrification in the next 5 years. And that's one area that we really need to see in action in the shorter term rather than long term, that's for sure.
So, ticketing and fares are a hot topic at the moment, with less people travelling and less people buying the likes of, the regular season tickets that they would buy. What progress in relevance to this has been made on the plans for a new Midland-wide travel card scheme that I saw a couple of stories about a couple of months ago?
So this is a very interesting area. When we first started to look at this particular initiative, this was really about, the Midlands saying, we really want to have a similar successful scheme as that you get in London with the Oyster card. It really is sad, isn't it, that only London and people who travel within London get the opportunity to have a really seamless experience. They know where they stand. It's a tap and cap kind of system. So that's how Midlands Connect started a project, and we're working with all the operators in the region and the local authorities, like the Combined Authority and so on, saying, come on, we need the Midlands people deserve better than what we got at the moment. So that's how we started, and we did come out with a proposal to government that we were hoping to receive the funding to enable the technology to be put in place and get that up and running in 2 years' time, which meant anybody in the Midlands could come across, could travel east west, no matter where you were, you could travel through this using this technology. Now, what COVID has done is it has made this particular initiative even more relevant, because, as you know, there's a lot of talk at the moment about the future of public transport and how we will get people back into the network. So one of the key factors is not the only one, obviously, but one of the key factors will be to make the whole ticketing agenda as easy and affordable as possible. And that's what our proposals are set to do. So we have submitted, again, our proposals to government, and we're hoping that government will see the opportunity that there is, as I said, to bring up people, the confidence back into the railways and back our scheme so we can deliver it quickly. So it's ready there when people are also ready to get back into the network.
Okay, so staying on the subject of, sort of passenger confidence and getting people travelling, is it almost a worry when there's new fleets incoming, such as the East Midlands Railway Aurora fleet? There's this new high-tech fleet coming out, but passengers may still not want to travel, and they're almost missing out on this new amazing fleet that's come in that's going to improve their travelling experience, but they're still not confident enough to be on public transport. Is that a worry for you at Midlands Connect?
Well, there is a short-term worry, I would say. We understand why people are not traveling. We in fact we've been encouraged not to travel, haven't we? so so there is obviously, for all the right reasons, a short-term massive negative impact on the railways. They're empty, and it is sad to see them empty, isn't it? We were a region in the Midlands that was the fastest region in terms of rail patronage. And you're right, we now have got huge technology arriving, also emerging from every corner of the Midlands. We got, like you suggested, the East Midlands Railway Aurora freight, and there's a lot of huge activity around hydrogen trains too. And we just got to think and plan, not for the short term, as I said, and that's where Midlands Connect has got, we believe, an important role to play, because we got to give people a sense that this horrendous pandemic that we're experiencing will go away. And we're starting to hear positive news, haven't we, and about the vaccine and everything. And so confidence will come back. And one thing that history has shown is that people do want to travel. And I've been told many times, oh, Maria, don't mention commuting. People don't like commuting. Well, people, sometimes people don't have choice. People don't have access to cars. don't have, they do need to commute. They need to see other businesses. They need to do trade. Um, we need to really embrace railways again, and technology is probably a nice selling point. I talked to you earlier about the ticketing and the affordability of it. Well, maybe technology is another factor that could get people back into the railways. If you're selling it on the climate change premise, and people are really keen to have to have a role in climate change. If we actually provide the people with much more awareness of how this new technology is going to revolutionize the way the transport network runs, not in the next decade, but in the next century, people will get back and will support it, I'm sure of it.
That is a really good point, highlighting to people, the environmental impact they could have by getting the train rather than driving their car to work instead. That is a really, really good point, especially coming out of COVID and coming out of this lockdown.
Absolutely, because again, we multimodal. I'm particularly passionate about railways, but I'm also very mindful of the huge revolution that we're experiencing in the cars. And you heard this week, government is going to commit to reduce their timeline for selling diesel and fuel cars. And therefore a lot of people will think, well, why should I jump on the railways when I can use a car that is equally green in terms of, but actually carbon footprint of individual cars and the damage that they will do if you think about everybody traveling into a town, a city by car, congestion, the quality of life, the place making. So we got to look at this in a much more holistic manner, and we need to make sure that the railways are fit at the best and the greenest to allow this movement, the rapid transit movement that we all know is so important and that people will definitely be willing to use if it's there ready for them.
Definitely. So I know you've just briefly touched on it there in relevance to the environmental changes and greener, faster travel. What would you say is the biggest challenge for the rail industry right now?
So I will say there's two in
Mm-hmm.
particular. One is the customer confidence that we spoke earlier, and you cannot just do that by just telling people to jump on the railway. There's going to have to be a much better way, much more innovative way of bringing everybody, all the key players together to sell the benefits of railway in a much more innovative and creative way. And we just touched on two. I'm sure there are many other areas, social mobility. There's lots of things that we can do, supporting visitor economy. We've got to be far more creative. So customer confidence is going to be very important, as I said, in the shorter, medium term, and getting them back onto the railways. The second biggest challenge is, yes, we got all this new technology emerging, all these new ideas, these concepts, these projects that everybody now understand. Everybody can talk about Northern Powers Rail, Midlands Engine Rail, East West Rail, HS2. We need to make sure that the industry and government go about implementing infrastructure in a much more innovative way with pace. If we look at what has happened in the railways in the last 50 years, 100 years in the UK, we need to perhaps double the acceleration and the pace of investment in green technology, in new technology in the railways, if we are serious to meet climate change. So the infrastructure planning and delivery we're going to have to go about it radically different.
Mm-hmm, definitely. I'm going to have to agree with you on there as well. Just the way projects are sort of panning out, it's almost getting to a stage with some where it's like they're almost getting forgotten about. If that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe not forgotten about, but almost like the ball starts rolling really, really quick, and then it just gets slower and slower and slower, and just the progress can just slow down sometimes, and then more projects come in and more projects come in, and then it's almost like which one ends up getting prioritized and which one is more important. And really, you should put a project in place and focus on it and do it, like you said, in a very innovative, faster way, then the benefits are there even quicker. So there's no questions raised as to what projects are priority. You know, is hydrogen a priority? Is electrification a priority?
Absolutely. You know, you couldn't have explained it better, far more than I did, actually. Well done. I think it's, and it really is that's something that Midlands Connect, we have learned very quickly. You know, we were there to make sure that we made it very easy for government to make decisions. You know, think about the region of the size of the Midlands, all the leaders of all parties across, you know, rural, urban, from Herefordshire to Derbyshire to Lincolnshire to the Black Country. They all agree to identify what really matters for the Midlands. That's what we did through Midlands Connect. And the last thing you want is to add more initiatives and trying to spread the butter thinly across all projects that because they're a good idea or because somebody important all of a sudden thinks it's a good idea. You need to focus. And for the massive effort that the Midlands has put in place through Midlands Connect for the last 4 years, we need to make sure that our priorities, as you say, get real traction, real focus, so the people can see that their vision, their priorities actually do matter, that government listen and they can see them into fruition. This is all part of the levelling up agenda, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah.
You need to stick to a plan together, and regions understand that you cannot do it in every single tiny little village town corner. That collective effort of identifying priorities needs to be surely driven forward and with clear plan of action, and that's what we are trying to do.
Mm-hmm. So this is my final question, Maria, and it's a question that we like to ask every single guest that we get on the podcast. And I appreciate every single time I ask it. It is quite a hard question. So if you want to take a couple of seconds before you come up with your answer, that is absolutely fine. So where would you like to see the rail industry in 10 years' time?
So you're right. It's a very tricky question because you could answer it from some different angles. You know, from skills, from passenger perspective, from a futuristic perspective. I think one of the USPs, if you know, and I don't do this very often, but one of the things that I definitely experienced when I came to the UK almost 20 years ago, I very quickly realized the USP of the UK in terms of its understanding and its passion for the railway. Now, across the globe, we always have acknowledged Britain was the driver of the railway revolution in the Victorian era. I just really would like to see the world, to see Britain bringing again another revolution in terms of the green railway. And the rail industry, if we all work together and we can figure out how we can sell that vision to the world again, and see that Britain has taken it on head on and start to implement it at pace, as we were discussing earlier. That is you don't underestimate the impact that can have globally. You know, people do look at Britain. Everybody's looking at how we're going to build HS2 at the moment. What's the latest technology we're going to be using? How we're going to go about the corridor, the green corridors along the line. The rail industry has got a huge opportunity here to break through and set a new model again, and that's what I would like to see. Of amongst other things, but that particular one is one I would like to see again.
That is a true vision for the future, that, Maria. So thank you very, very much for answering all my questions so brilliantly, so early on a Tuesday morning as well.
You're very welcome, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you about all of these very, very important matters for the Midlands.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of RTM's Track Talks. If you enjoyed today's discussions, then please do share across social media and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. We have some very exciting guests coming up over the next few weeks, so do stay tuned so you don't miss out.